Well, thank you all for coming. Certainly tonight we're expecting a large crowd of folks interested in hearing about the next biennial budget, and certainly the interest in this room, I would say, is pretty remarkable as well. This is truly a critical point in the history of our state, one that will help define Ohio for generations to come. The sad part is this could have all been prevented. I've previously expressed concern about budgets that address short-term problems while ignoring long-term consequences. In 2003, first, as a state representative, I refused to support a budget that had a temporary tax increase that didn't deal with current problems. And 2 years ago, as auditor of state, we produced the sustainability analysis, which basically asked the very simple question that all Ohioans were asking: what's going to happen when all of the one-time state and federal stimulus money is gone? The answer was just as daunting then as it is today. Ohio faces an unprecedented $8 billion budget hole. 2 years ago, I was criticized. Some refused to believe the stark reality of the budget mess that lie ahead. Turns out I was correct. And for more than a year, John Kasich and I have told Ohioans that once we take office, everything goes under the microscope, and it has. Tough budget challenges are nothing new for John Kasich. In Congress, he balanced the federal budget for the first time since man walked on the moon. He built a bipartisan team, they climbed mountains together, and with John's leadership, they got the job done. Well, today and this evening, we find out what it means to have a true visionary leader occupying the governor's office. We will unveil a reform agenda, a package of ideas and solutions that will not only solve our massive budget hole for the short term, this budget solves our long-term structural imbalance as well. It is my pleasure to introduce Ohio's Governor, John Kasich.
Well, today I keep my promise. I said that we would unveil a budget that was reform-oriented, we'd maintain the tax cuts for the state of Ohio, and we would create an environment of entrepreneurship, job creation. We call this the jobs budget because it puts Ohio in a position of where we can begin to lift ourselves from some of the poverty, the hopelessness, and the loss of jobs in this state. This budget is all designed to get us in a position of where we can have a platform to bring hope to families, to the unemployed, to the underemployed, and for those who have kind of lost hope in the state of Ohio. Just, I guess, about a week ago, the headlines across this state were pretty stunning. Every major city in Ohio, significant population loss. Our best and our brightest, our students, our business leaders, our job creators, fleeing the state. We're beginning to stem the tide with a series of incentives to businesses that you can think about in terms of the saving of 2,000 jobs, Up in American Greetings, the bringing of an action movie to Cleveland, the ability to keep American Greetings from moving their headquarters to Texas and staying and reinvesting in the state of Ohio with other things in the queue. But for a long time now, you all ask me the specifics, and today you get the specifics. But the one thing that I think you need to understand is that this budget is woven with one reform after another. It is, I would guess, the most reform-oriented budget presented in modern Ohio history. We did not take an approach of just cutting. And frankly, we have been working on this budget for years. Even before I knew I was going to be a candidate for governor, I felt it was a responsibility as an Ohioan to start putting together reform ideas. And I want to salute the people that worked in the early days to figure out a better way to develop the product to serve the taxpayers at the state at a lower cost in a more modern and efficient and effective way. And then I had the great pleasure of having one cabinet member after another come to work in the administration, which in some ways remains stunning to me today. A physician that decided to leave Dayton, the inventor of the creator, one of the pioneers of the medical home. Greg Moody, who left a better job to come and try to transform healthcare and Medicaid in this state. Gary Moore, who leaves the private sector with 30 years worth of experience in rehab and corrections, comes to bring about change for the state of Ohio. Let me give you a couple of the things that'll surprise you. First of all, we did not operate on a short field. You know, most people focus on the General Revenue Fund, and you didn't even know there was something other than the General Revenue Fund. Well, the General Revenue Fund represents only about half of our state's resources. It's admittedly the part of the budget that we can most control. But we didn't operate on a short field. We operated on a longer field. We operated on a $52 billion field rather than a $26 billion field. And you know, when you lengthen the field, it gives you greater opportunity. Let me just give you a couple of the highlights. Basic foundation aid for K-12 slightly increases. Maybe I need to say that again. And Heath, pick yourself up off the floor. Basic state aid, K-12, slightly increases. Basic state aid to higher ed, slightly increases. We were able to do a number of things because we set very high priorities for the operation of this government. Our cabinet directors were all asked to go inside of their budgets and find either a 10 or a 15% cut in the operations of their budget without damaging their clients. We have with us today the Director of Mental Health. As many of you know, we were able to put people in front of buildings where we've saved capital improvement costs and reduced operating costs. We have the Director of the Department of Developmental Disabilities who says that we will not leave families or the developmentally disabled behind. We have our Director of Jobs and Family Services who went from the CFO to now running that organization. And while we've made savings and changes, we have been able to preserve all of the efforts that we have in the state to provide child care for mothers who are out there trying to find work. And with Greg Moody at Medicaid, we were able to make sure that we took a far-reaching and reform-oriented approach to medicine so that we didn't leave people behind. We just didn't, in a way, just go and cut things across the board. We worked to develop a better product. The bottom line on all this is that there's change in here, and there are reforms in here. The local government funds, the local government fund, which is a revenue-sharing program that was phased out by the federal government in the 1970s, we are making reductions in the local government fund, but they're accompanied by tools that can allow local governments to cope. Tools like shared services and carving out more prevailing wage opportunities so government can save money. And also, don't lose sight of the fact that many of these local governments are going to get casino revenue, and they're going to be in a position to be able to cope with the loss of these dollars. But overall, as you examine this, we have provided for the most vulnerable. We have prioritized K through 12 and higher education, and we've taken care of those who are the least of us in this society. Is it perfect? By no means is it perfect. But I've kept the promise. We've spread the field. We've been able to balance this budget each year for the 2 years as constitutionally required, and we did it without a tax increase, which allows us to be in a position of where Ohio can compete for jobs, where we can expand the employment in this state, and where people can have hope again. We had a briefing with some of the leaders in the legislature yesterday. We're very pleased with the results of those briefings. I will have more to do with the entire Republican members of the legislature yet today. And we look forward to our unprecedented town hall meeting. It won't be a lot of exciting kind of a laser show or anything like that. That's not what we're looking for. Budgets are serious matters. We'll throw a joke in here or there. But when you come tonight, you need to be prepared to get down into the details of exactly how we did this. This is an open process. We invite your questions. We invite your scrutiny, and hope you will give this budget a fair analysis as we move forward. One of the people that I worked with, of course, was Tim Keene. And Tim, I met about 3 years ago. He started to explain the culture of how the team that's been together for so many years operates. I want you to know that political considerations were not a part of this budget. If you get in the middle of political considerations and favoring one group over another, you lose. We did not do that. We worked with all the interested parties to bring them in, those that wanted to work with us, and we took their best ideas. And by doing that, we've arrived at a document that we truly believe can transform our state and create an environment for job growth. Tim Keene has just been a phenomenal partner in this process. As you know, he's been around here a long time, and he tells me this is the most excited he's been the entire time he has worked inside the government of the state of Ohio.